Hey there. Hey, it's David R. Becker here with BeckerArt. And, oh, about a minute late. Darn it. Actually, 6:30, right? Welcome, welcome. And today we're going to do a little bit of a milk can, or milk container. An old antique milk container. And I already did it in this afternoon. And I'm going to have to do a lot of adjusting on it. And so we'll see how that goes. Today's beer is again from Katrina from Wisconsin. We're gonna have her beer for like the next month because she gave me a bunch of different beers. And this again is from the New Glarus. It's called, let's see, what is this? Moon Man. And so Northern Coast Pale Ale. So let's see what this is like. Just open it, pour real quick. Thank you, Katrina, again. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, cheers, cheers. Okay, last week's was a 10, and it was really good. This one's a little bit bitter, very good. So I'm gonna give it about a 9. I'm not a big fan of bitter. This is not really, really bitter though, but it got a little bit of a bite to it. Not bad though. 9. So cheers, everybody. Cheers, cheers, cheers. And let's get going. We have a lot to talk about today. Tons of stuff to talk about. So who's all here? Oh boy, we got a bunch of people here. Pat. We got Pamela, Lyle, Susan, Jean, Dawn, Lucia, Barbie, and Monica, Dave, and Sherry. Wow, Kathy from Minnesota. Hey, Kathy. All right, so let's go on and right away tell me. Here we're going to do our website. So I'm going to get to my website for any of my information, what's happening. And oh, I forgot to turn the air conditioning off. So sorry about that. Let's turn that off so you can hear me. I just had the air conditioning on. Sorry about that. So now you can hear me better. Hey, Barbara. You're also here? All right. So there's my website at BeckerArt.net or DavidRBecker.com. Either one will take you to my website, and that's everything you want to know about me is in there. Let's go really quickly to our supplies. Supplies, again, are Holbein watercolors. Got my brushes. We didn't use Mascoy today, though I probably should, but we're going to talk about that. All right, and so value study. Value study, actually Notan is what we want to talk about today. I'm really into this right now, and so I do want you to send me your pictures. A couple of people sent me some photographs at on my website. You can go and download. Actually, no, you can't download in there. But my web address is BeckerArt@gmail.com. And just send me some pictures that you feel like you want to paint, because I'm going to do a little video and change them all and talk about them a little bit in a video for next week. And so here, right away, I want to just show you how when we talk about design is between the black and white. And if you got my newsletter this week, and if you didn't get it, go to my website. There's a archives button down there. You can check those out and go back to this week's newsletter and to the video actually on my YouTube here. We talk about Notan Design, and so it's about turning your images black and white and having a good feeling about them. And so when you look at this picture and you look at right here, and if I squinted my eye, I would see the same thing that I put together with the Photoshop over here. So when you're looking at this, you look at the lights and darks, and then somebody was asking me in class today, well, how do you know then it's a good composition and how it's a good design? And I'm going to try to teach that next week when that's come. I want you to kind of bring me your images, your photographs, and so I can show you on your photographs what it makes to do a good composition, or actually a good pattern of light and dark. And really, it's, the weird thing is it's really simple, because it's basically looking at it and feeling. Think of it as like is it on a scale? So is one side is too heavy, one side too light? Is it too much, too complicated, like the lights and dark pattern, where it's too much on one side? And actually, as I'm looking at this, and as I did my painting, I noticed that we probably should have a little bit more on this side, which is really dark. And maybe I'll put a couple of these things on this side, a couple lights over here, just to get your eye kind of over there, to have it more balanced. And so basically that's what it is. Design is all about a balance between the light and the dark. And so we have to decide, when you see a middle tone, like this shadow right here, you have to decide, is it going to be in the light or the dark? And for this, it's almost like in both. In this one, for instance, it's like kind of in the light. So this middle tone here, shadow, will be both in the dark and the light, because I'm going to put it a little bit darker right here, and I'm going to put a reflected light on the back here. And it looks pretty good with it both ways on this instance. And over here, we have a lot of dappled light, but because there's so much of it, it kind of looks kind of like this is all the light area with a little bit of dark running through there. And so it looks pretty decent. It's like I can just tell, but the more you paint, the more you can tell between the black and white how well it is going to paint. Keep it simple. It's always like you're going to notice when we do this next week is that most of the ones that are really simple, when it comes to simple design between your light and dark, it's just going to work out. And like I said, I am going to put a couple of lights coming over the back here because I think it needs that, just so that it's not all on this side. Basically balancing it again. It's all about the balance of, and there's a bunch of things in composition with colors and dimension and all that kind of stuff. But really, just keep it simple for yourself. Just think of it as a big light and dark pattern. And some people have the crucifix, the S, the oh my God, there's so many different ways of making compositions when it comes to like the light and dark pattern. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, next week, probably in my newsletter, just so that we keep on going with this, because it's all about designing it. And the first thing I want to do, and I actually put an app out for that, and I'm going to put that in my newsletter next week. There's an app on your phone that is called Notan Newtonizer, I guess, and it makes your images black and white. And you can control the black and white to which side it's going to go, and so that cuts out your middle tone, and so it makes your middle tone go to either to light or to dark. All right, so we'll talk about more of that because that's very important. And here's what I did this afternoon. And I kind of overworked it because I kept on going back into this area. These shadows, I really screwed up. So I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to erase all of this. And I may even show you how to do that, where I'm going to take and erase all of this and do it again. And but first we got to get another new one. And so this didn't turn out so great. And also I think a little bit of this dappledness could be over into this side. It just feels empty on this side, feels kind of lonely over here. Again, it's about a feeling that you have, and looking at it, it's sort of like, well, this is kind of like a shape that is all by itself. And so to discourage that shape a little bit, I'll put maybe a couple of the corn stalks in there or something like that. All right. And again, if you have questions, please ask away. I'm also going to maybe put some lettering. I know there's a little bit of lettering on that on the front here. And instead of putting what's on, I think, what does it say? Like FCO. And so I'm going to make it DRB. DRB, David R. Becker. So maybe we'll do that in there. Maybe. I'm not so certain that I'm going to put it on there. So I'm going to erase it. I erased my lines that I drew for my shading because I don't think I need those. I think I'm trying to follow too much into that. And so if I make them off a little bit, it's okay just to make them up. And because that's what the problem was on this one, is when I put the shading in there, I didn't do it right, and I kept on scrubbing. Then I scrubbed again. Then I put something else on there, so it became very untransparent. And I'm still going to make it look transparent by rubbing this whole area of light again, and I'll do that at the end. So Tina, remind me. All right, here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is a rusty old milk can, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to get some kind of texture. And there's many different ways of getting texture. There's, using salt, there's spattering, there's cellophane you can put on there. There's so many different ways of getting texture on something like this. So I'm going to use spatter, but I'm not going to wet it all because then it'll all be soft edge. And so I want some hard edges in there. So at this time, I'm going to wet it as I go along. And so, could you move the can so part of it is off the page to achieve a good composition? You could, yeah. That's actually the way it came. The picture was actually cut right here. And so only half of it was on there. But I kind of like to see the whole thing. I felt like it was cutting it off, and then I guess the handle would be more interesting. But I thought by putting a few more of these on this side, then I think that'll work too. So either way, you can do that too. Try it and let us see. It's always about you have to try, and you can actually do this in your composition too when you're doing your thumbnail. And again, it's a thumbnail. It's not a sketch, because when I say a value sketch, people tend to want to make it look really pretty, like it's a sketch with every little thing in there. It's about a thumbnail and getting the whole big light and dark pattern is what I'm talking about this week. All right, so I'm spattering with water here a little bit. I'm gonna use some, I do have my gouache here, so I may use some gouache in here too today, Let's see, we're just going to put some texture in here. I'm going to keep this part a little bit whiter this time too, because I covered it all this afternoon. So I'm going to leave some of it white so that, you know, it is rusty, but we can also put some white in there. I'm using a little bit of yellow. And you notice I didn't wet all of it. I spattered the water so that I can maybe get a little bit of hard edge spatter and the hard edges in there. So that's going to be kind of neat. I'm going to try that. And it is a rusty item, so go in there with a lot of rust color. And since I'm using a lot of orange, then what is the complement of orange? Blue, right? And so we're going to put a little bit of blue in there. I'm going to reflect a little bit of blue on the side here. So let's go with a little bit of my horizon blue. And again, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do this line right here right now, because I want it to bleed over so I don't go right to that line. I just want some of that color to go into the background. So I'm just going to make this go right over, because this is lighter than the background, and the background's darker, so I don't have to go down that line. And that's one thing I want you to start thinking about, is like, why would you go into it and try to make it really tight, you know, when that'll help the background with the color in the background too. So, and it's harder to stop it and make it a hard edge and then butt up with something else against it. It's so much easier to put a dark right on top of that. Let me put a little bit dark in here. And also, I'm going to try to get some of the shadowing right away and not come back when it's dry. I know these are hard edge shadows, but I'm going to try to make them a little bit soft and work it so that there's a little bit of softness to them too. So here we're going to go and kind of go in here and just... And this is probably is a great time to where, if you are going to use salt, it's a great time to do it here, because salt, actually, the effect looks kind of rusty. And so that would be kind of a good thing. But I'm not a big fan of salt. I just don't use it very often. But you're more than welcome to use it. I know a lot of my students use it and they love it. And I just don't ever... It doesn't work so well for me. Every time I put it down and it gets too much or too little. And but you can go ahead. It's up to you if what you want to do that. If you want to do that, that's fine. Totally fine with that. It's one way of getting texture. Another way is spatter, right? Spatting water or spattering a light, spattering a dark, spattering a lot of water. If you do a lot of water, it gets bigger dots, and I want to make it look worn, you know, like worn out kind of. I'm going to take a little bit of this light out here, because I do want to make it look like that part is light. So there's a shadow, right? The shadow goes kind of right here, kind of goes down there. And I can also take a bigger, darker color. That's a black. I'm not sure. I really shouldn't use black right there. Let's get a little bit darker, and it's thicker, and so I can make it a line there. And it will soften because it's all wet, and now it is all wet there, so it will soften right there. And I'll make this go around down here. Any questions, please let me know. And then I'm just going to take this on the top here, spatter again a little bit more. And I know that I said there's some light. I could even take like paper towel, dab there. I can make some lights, but I think this will be good just to where it's at right now. I'm going to spatter a little bit more. Spatter, splatter, either way. I think it's more spattering than splattering. Though sometimes I feel like I'm just splattering all over the place. All right, and now let's get our lights over here, because there are lights in here, like some of these stalks of corn stalks in here. And so get some of that. These flowers are white, and that's where you could possibly use masking fluid. Be a great place to use masking fluid. I don't like using it on this paper because this paper tends to rip a little bit, and so I decided I'm just going to use white paint if I need to get there and make some white flowers. So here we're just going to... I do like this blue, so some of the blues I'm over here. I'm going to put that some over here. I kind of like that blue sitting in here too, like a reflected light in this can here. Kind of like that there. And look how messy it is. Isn't that great? I just really like the... And again, I know I said that this is going to be the lights first. It's always light first, but because it's a soft edge, I might as well go into my second step, which is the large mediums, because that's kind of a medium. I know it looks really dark right now, but it's a medium and it's a large medium. So step 1 and step 2 I'm doing together as one time, and it's fine. You can do that. And actually, why I talk like that, I said I was going to do some of the shadowing in there, so let's do that right away too. Just get that done, and then I'll be done. So I'm going to take a nice, maybe a purple with that orange, with the terracotta, which is called light red with Holbein. And so I'm just going to take it, and there's a little plant right here that's going to go down. And so let's see if I can make this a harder edge. It's soft, but it'll be harder, and it'll just blend right into this area. And so it'll look more like a shadow than it did last time, because the last time when I did it too many times, and it should be like a one-shot deal. Like get in there and get out, and maybe I'll do another one here. I'll put one over here. I can put a little bit of maybe blue in there. Here it was a little bit too wet, so it's just going to bleed out. It's not going to show as hard edged as the other ones because there's a lot of water right here. I can go back in and make it a little bit harder too later, but I kind of want to see if I can't do this now and just leave it like that, like a shadow of the color that it is right there. It's kind of an orangey color. And the shadow is the color of the object first, and then you can get other colors that are reflected around it. Because basically it is this color of this can, which is rusty. So that's the color here first. Now these are really harsh, sharp shadows, so they're almost black in the photo, but I'm making it a little bit more, not as hard an edge. I can put a little bit of purple in there, red in there too. I can start it out really, really dark, just like that too. So you can just go in there, and while it's wet, this is when you do it. A lot of pigment if you wanted to stay while it's wet. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow there. And then there's these shadows that go down here, and then we'll go off the page. And so maybe they're going to shoot this way. So get that in there right away. Why not? You know, just get everything you can possibly get in there right now. And as long as you know how to control the wash to a hard edge and a soft edge, while it's wet, you just need a lot of pigment. Now let's get the rest of our lights over here. And I can make those little flowers light blue, maybe. A little bit of white and light blue. Hey Marianne, hey Pamela, hey Tina, hey Darcy, Bill, Barbara. Oh, we got a lot tonight. Last week we couldn't get hardly anybody. This week everybody must be back from vacation, or school started again, right? School started again, so you're all back to start learning again. So here we go. And I know I'm talking a lot about composition lately and design, more about design than composition right at the moment, because you have to learn design between making it black and white first, and then we can go into different types of composition that work better, you know, like and we'll be discussing that as the weeks go on. You're about at that point now where we talked about all kinds of different things, and I keep on bringing up new different things so that you start realizing that it's just I start with easy and I get harder and harder as you go along. But it's always good to learn design and then turning your things black and white with Notan. That's a really good way of starting your looking of how to get good design into your work. And it makes the painting easier because I know right away what has to be light, and that's my first step. Step 1 is my lights, so that's what I'm getting right now. All those lights that are in this scene right here. Let's go back real quick. Where's my thing here? If you're going back to here, remember this is what I'm painting around is this whole light. This is middle tone and light, but like I said, I did step 1 and step 2 together because it's a big area, and if I can do them both together, hey, you killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You get step 1 and step 2 together. And so I did that, and over here it's the same thing where I'm getting all my lights, and I'll go back in with my darks, my large darks, which is step 2 later. So that's after my medium, my large mediums, my large darks, and then my large details. Or my details, I mean, not large, just regular details. All right, so let's go back here. And now, that's some pretty nice, and that's a middle tone, it's the shadowing, and I kind of like it. I'm a lot happier than I was this afternoon, where I kind of messed that part up. And so here I think I'm liking it. A little bit more of the shadows. Now detail like the little handle and the letters, that's all detail time. Not now, this is my lights. And let's get the light of the tabletop too right away. What should I make that? Kind of grayish maybe? Maybe I'll make that kind of grayish. I won't put the shadow in there now. I'm just going to make it a little bit gray. I'm going to keep parts of it light white because then it is kind of a light area, so then I'm going to leave that white. All right, so there's my lights. Pretty much all my lights are in now. And then with my next step will be my large darks. My large darks. And what is that? On this side, there's a lot of large darks, right? Let's put a couple of lights in this side. I forgot to say that. Remember I said I was going to put a couple of lights in this side to balance out this side. I just think if I put a couple of them more on this side, it'll just help it out that so it's not so dark over there and so different looking. Compositionally, it's nicer to have something that's on this side, put it on that side too. It just gives it the better composition. Okay, let's go into our large darks. Could you move this can? Oh yeah, we read that already. All right, so now let's go in here with our darks, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna find a spot where I can start and not have to go. I could start here and go all the way around, but this is complicated. So I want to first get this part, get an easier part first. So I'm gonna go up there and get the larger part, and just start out with some nice dark colors. Here's the purple with the blue. And you notice I'm wetting as I go along. I didn't wet it first. I'm wetting as I go along because maybe there's something in here as I'm going along that I want to keep hard-edged. And so I'm just taking different colors and wetting them. And as I go along, also negative painting this can at the same time. Look how wet this is. And look at how great it is having this towel right there. I can just right next to the painting. And I'm hoping you're all doing this with the towel. I think it's a really cool way of painting. I should like get some towels made there with my name on it, just so that'd be good. Oh yeah, with the Becker towel that you put underneath your painting and make it really messy. So here we go. And also, speaking of products that I endorse, or I just this morning started working on a page on my website. It's in the shop. If you go to my shop part of my website, I just put in a page, or in the bottom of the page, you scroll down, you're going to see all the products that I endorse, or all the products that I've been using, like that liner I just did a couple of days ago or weeks ago. That's all in there now, and you can just there's links to them on Amazon and on at Dick Blick's, and they're just linked to shops, so you can just buy them. So you can just finally go and get all the things that I recommend. So I've had a lot of people ask me, "Oh, Dave, where did you get that so and so? Where did you get that airbrush? Where did you get that this? Where did you get that?" And so it's right now on my website, on the shop part of my website. You can go in there and then just look it up. Now there's only like about 6 things right now. I'm still working on it. It took a while to get it even that far. So every day I'll probably put more and more of them on there. So see, I'm kind of making it warm. I'm not sure why. It is blue in the picture, but let's put some peacock in there. Put some blue in there. Now with the orange, it's going to turn brown, but that's okay. We're gonna just take a little bit out, put more water in there. As long as you put water, floating in water, it'll be fine. Dish drying mats are even better than towels. Oh, I'll have to try that. Are they big enough, like to cover my whole table? That's the only thing I like. I like to have it cover my whole table. Personalized towels with your name on them. Great way to promote yourself, David. Thanks. Maybe dish towel or dish mats. Maybe a dish mat with my name on it. I just gotta see. They have to be big. They can't be like a small area. I need a big, huge towel. The bigger. I like beach towels. This one I have here right now is a beach towel. Or they're huge towels. They're pretty big towels. It covers like at least 4 feet wide. And also that way I don't use so much paper paper towel. I just throw them into the washer, put a bunch of bleach in there because they are white, and so I just bleach them, and they don't get totally clean again, but they're close enough. And it's not like I'm gonna use them for my towel to wipe myself in the bath after you get out of the bathtub. But no, these are ones I just use for my studio. So see, we're doing that a little bit different, getting it in there. Puppy pee pads. Okay, we're gonna try that too. But I better write these things all down. So mat, dish mats, and puppy pee pads. We're gonna try those out. Sounds great. See how great it is when you have a bunch of people on. That's kind of like classes with a lot of people, because you always learn something. That's how I learned about the pen, the fine line painting pens. You know, I just yesterday did a small class I substitute teach in Lake Zurich for another friend of mine. She couldn't make it, and so I substitute for her. And I was telling everybody about these fine line painting pens that I had the other week online here, and basically the best way to make a line, fine line painting pens, which I don't have one here right at the moment, but yeah, they're great. They're absolutely the best way of making a line in watercolor. All learned because of some lady, and I forgot her name, who told me, up in Minnesota, and super great. All right, so there's the right side, and like I said, I want to keep this a little bit not as dark on some parts, because I want to bring some of this over that side. Now I have this part done. Now let's go this way, and then I'll get these nice little angles, and I'll get these nice little corn stalks. I guess they look like they're corn husk type of stalks. And now this is a middle tone. I'm not doing a large darks yet, because I need to save that so that when I put my darks in, I can go behind and give it a third layer. This is layer 1 on the top, and negative painting around is light. That's the top. Middle tone will be the next layer, and then there's going to be a layer that's this dark behind that, making this color some object also. And if I look at my object, this is really dark over on this side, and I can do some of that right away, really dark. And then just bring that in, and kind of use the same colors I use on this side, just kind of make it even. You know, even though in the photograph it's not completely even, but then you are the artist, so you make it even. You make colors that match on one side as the other. So I can do a couple of this things where see, that's another layer that's going behind there. At the same time, trying to get my look of the can here, the milk can. Again, trying to go more with a middle tone here. Go with the middle tone first. You can always go darker. It's hard to go back to light once you put a really dark down. So I try to go light, medium, then dark. And a notanizer, basically the same as posterizer in Photoshop. Yes, posterizer does the same thing. And there is a free app that one of my students, Mark, told me today in class that I said I recommended it, and one of the ladies, I think, had that, and I had it before. I think a while back, maybe a couple of years ago, I had it. I totally forgot about it, and but yeah, it's the same thing. Or you can take, even if you're in your camera, you can take the contrast and you make the slider that's the light and the dark, and bring them both together. Make it the darkest dark and the lightest light. Just bring them together so that you get rid of all the middle tone. And again, please, if you can send me some pictures that you want to have Newtonized, not niced. If you want me to do it and show you, and then we're going to talk about them a little bit in a video, then please send me them. And hopefully I will be able to use all of them, but you know, if I get too many, I may not be able to use all of them, but you know, please send them if you can. And then again, my email address is BeckerArt@gmail. My BeckerArt with everything, and then just put Gmail there. So I'm going around some of the little flowers here. I'm just going through here. And don't, when you're giving me these images, you don't have to make them good just pick a picture that you want to do. Don't analyze it first to try to make sure that it is a good pattern. I want you to just give me the picture without trying to analyzing it first to make sure that it is a good one, or even that it's a bad one. I'll figure it out and I'll let you know what I feel about it. And you don't have to tell me, anything. Just send them away to my email address. I'm not sure if you can send me something on my website on the thing, if there's a way of sending. I don't think there is, so you're just going to have to send me an email to my email address. So this is dappled, like it is in the picture, is dappled of lights and mediums and darks. And that's okay. It works in the composition into the Notan that we had done. And so it should work here then too. As long as we keep it kind of clean and watercolor looking like. And then there's also, after you get done with the black and white design, there's also how well you do the watercolor and stuff like that, things like that. Like, is the watercolor the way you're supposed to, leave it down, put it down and leave it? All the other things kind of come into effect then too. It's not just that you have that right in it, and it's also you're going to get a great painting. There's also many other things you have to go besides that. But this is a really good start to learn how to design things, is with that, changing it black and white and making it black and white. Something that I never really took into consideration when I was in school, because they didn't really teach it that way. They just made you do the value study, and I, like many of us, thought it was like doing a really good sketch of it, and that really is not what it is at all about. It's about a blueprint of how to paint your painting, basically, is what you want it to be. And I'm hoping that they're making sense in my videos. Sometimes I watch them, rewatch them, and I'm thinking, boy, did that make sense? I'm not quite sure if it made total sense or not. But I know when I first started thinking about it, it didn't make sense until later on, especially the black and white part of it. I always thinking about composition. Even my composition book doesn't have tan in it, and it didn't at that time of my life when I was writing the book. I was not as good as I am now, and it was when I just got out of school when I wrote that book, and so I just thought I wrote what I was taught as my teachers taught me. So I think I've gained a little knowledge since then, and so I should really do another book on that. All right, here we go, making things a little bit darker. All right, so there's my big mediums, my big darks. And so basically next is my what? Next will be my details. You go from step 1, which is your lights. Step 2 is your large mediums, large darks. Step 3 is to finish off, is your details, dark details and light details. Just details in general. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes they fall together as one type of thing. 1 and 2 go together because you got to do both at the same time because of the way that painting is set up. That sometimes actually happens a lot where that happens. So let's get a little bit darker over here. All right, so what time are we at? It's details time. And I am going to make this a little bit darker so they can put some light white flowers in here. So if I don't have a dark underneath there, then when I put the white flowers in, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to look like a mess. So I'm putting these things in a little bit darker. It's still wet, so they'll all bleed together. And I can still find later on putting hard edge of these stems and leaves and petals in there. £300 paper is the thick paper. 300 grams doesn't actually talk about the thickness of it. It's the 340 pounds that is that what you want to look for. Don't look for the grams of the paper, because that a 140 can be a 300 gram paper. So when you're looking for the thin paper, it's 140 pound. If it's 300 pound paper, it's the thicker stuff. The 300 gram can be put on. It's the GSM, or that is not the weight or the thickness of the paper. One time I bought a bunch of the 300, I thought 300 pound, it was 140, it just had the 300 GSM on it, and so, yeah, just look for the pound symbol. All right, so now detail stage. And this is the fun stage. This is always the fun. This is where it's looking like something. I mean, you still, I mean, it looks like a can, but now you're going to get in and make it really look almost photographic because you're going to get all the details in. This is where you start using your small brushes. And here I'm going to put a little bit of this shadowing in there on top. On your phone, look for, there's an app, just type in Notan Designer or Newtonizer. And there's a free app out there that will change your photographs to black and white. And there's a really, it's kind of neat. Mark showed me that today in class. It's a really kind of a neat, it turns it to different levels of light and dark, and you can choose one. It's really, very cool. So definitely get that on your phone. And it's free. Look at all the little details I'm getting in there. Just making that handle look really nice, and it's going to look really realistic. You know, I'm just going to put the dark around this part. And there's a little bit of a dent in this can right here. Put that all the way across. Then, of course, there's the shadow that's a little bit darker. Really, really dark, actually. So what I'm going to do is start out with my rigger brush. Get a really nice dark color. And I actually like having my gouache in here now, so every time I want to use something where I really wanted it to cover up really well, I can just use my gouache. I can just use the gouache. Use it like watercolor because it is watercolor, it's just more opaque. But it covers like that, but then when you put water on it, it blends out really nicely. Especially Holbein gouache, it's more pigmented, so you get a lot more pigment to work with. A lot of the companies that do gouache they put whiteners in there, whitening agents, and that's what you want your gouache to be. You just want it to be finer pigment, so that it covers better. More pigment covers better. Now see, I'm going in there and just getting all the details. I'm putting my darks in, and if I want to soften the top edge, I can just wet it. Just take a water and just see, I'm just wetting the top, and it'll just bleed right up into that area. There's a shadow across the top that I'm not going to put in there. Oh, I already put it in there. Made it a little bit different than it was in a picture. You have to watch out for these. Like there's a shadow right here. Watch out for shadows like that because they could look like objects instead of shadows if they're too dark. So I'll put this one like that, going back a little bit. I can maybe make another like there's, and then I have to make sure that that's this shadow. It's coming from the side and shooting over that way. Here now we'll make this a little bit soft right here. It goes hard, but then it turns into a soft edge, and so I just add water. Water softens edges. That's all you got to remember. Anytime you want a soft edge, make sure you wet the surface, and it'll soften on its own. You don't have to do anything except add the water. Should make a little thing. Add water and it'll soften. Now I'll make this really dark. And then it kind of comes down right here. It kind of goes downwards again. Gets really hard edge, but then it kind of bleeds into the softness down there, right? Now this side I have reflected light. Look at how I have reflected light in there. Now do I keep it or do I make it dark like the photograph? It's up to you. I could... It's a little bit too bright, almost a little bit too bright. So I'm going to tone it down a little bit more. And maybe I'll still use the blue, but I'll tone it down a little bit. I don't want to make it green. Let's see, a little blue and purple. I want it just a little bit darker than that, because that ended up being a little bit too light right there. It is in shadow, so it's just a tint of color. See how you can always make things darker, but you can't make, it's harder to make things lighter. And then you can make it lighter too. You just have to make sure that you rub out. Now on the top here, I'm going to put a little bit of darkness on here. It gets a little bit dark here, and there's a shadow that goes up right there. And then there's a little bit of lettering right here. I'm just going to fake some lettering in there, like it's tinted into, kind of dented into the metal. This little latch right here that's holding the handle, make that a little bit darker. Then there's this part, I know it's lighter, but I'm going to make it darker just because I don't have it light enough there, so I'm just going to make it darker. And this is almost too white for me, so I'm going to, right here, This will make my handle a little bit darker or lighter, so I'm just going to make this a little bit darker right there. Again, you can always make things darker. It's a lot easy. It's very easy. So don't worry if you didn't get it dark enough the first wash. You want to try to always get things right away. That's the best. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I took a little bit of this blue over here only because it's over here. And so I got to get some of that over on this side. Let's go back with my round brush because there's a little bit of detail on the bottom here. Wow, I just turned off the air conditioning and it is getting so hot in here. Does it look like I'm sweating? I better get some more of this beer, this bitter beer. It's still a 9. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's just a little, it's not that bad. It's not as bitter as some of the other IPGs. No, North Coast Pale Ale. So a 9 for that. Now we're going to get a little line right here. Come on, ask me a question, guys. And this seems a little bit light here too. Doesn't that seem a little bit light? Like it's not turning? Because this is right up here. It's really nice now. It really turns away. And actually this up here can be a little bit darker too. And let's now get our third dark. We got our middle tones. Now let's get our darks in here, dark details in the area for my center of interest area, which is in this area. Uh-oh, Nevada. Sorry about that. Let's get rid of that. I thought I turned my phone off. All right, and so we're gonna make these a little bit darker because this is the behind everything. And so I'm just going to get one more step behind things. And this the dark darks. Dark details. I can go behind like some of these stalks here and make some dark ones, make some light ones with the sense already there. And also by doing this gives me a little bit more power to put the lights in there when it comes to the white of the flowers. They'll pop a little bit more. Gives me more details around like the handle here. And the handle, I forgot the shadow yet for the handle. I'm making a nice and dark purple here because that's a really, really dark shadow right here. Here's the dark shadow of the handle. And this is inside. We get a nice dark in there underneath. Look at how nice that looks. Look at that handle. Do a little bit dark right here to lay it flat, and like I said, a little bit darker. I want this shadow a little bit darker. So what I do for that is I take clear water. I just put a little clean water over the top of here. I don't rub at all. I just lay it on top. I'm not going to do this part over here because that's the soft edge, and I don't want to ruin the soft edge. I just need to have that part a little bit darker, and so I'll get some a little bit darker colors. And I'll just let them float in this water. Because you can always float it in the water. It's gonna soften up. It's just gonna float around up here. Make it a little bit darker. And if it's not colorful enough, put some color in there. And maybe I can even throw the shadow in here. Let it keep that like. I kind of like that. I just don't want to go over that. Oh boy, should I go over it? You never know. I can put a little bit of water here too. There, a little bit darker. And this shadow can be a little bit more soft and go out here a little bit. Yeah, I think I will make that a little bit darker, this shadow. But see, every time you go over a shadow, every time you go over it, it makes it one step worse. It doesn't make it better sometimes, it makes it worse. If that first wash, if it's really clean, just stick with that. But this one's not very clean right here, so I'm just going to put a little wash right there. this one maybe can, because it was soft edged. You can make them hard edged. It's okay to make them hard edged. I just don't want to make them look worked at, like it's too worked at with your brush, because I can tell when a painting is overworked. Like you can tell how many times that brush goes over it, and so you really don't want to have it really a lot of that in there. It's very simple to see. I just judged a show. I'm judging a show for Cedarburg, and I can tell like when there's more of an amateur than there is a professional. It's all about the washes and how they put the washes down. Put the washes down clean. All right. Let me put some white paint in there, and I'm going to show you the other thing. We still have 15 minutes. I'm going to show you how to how to correct a mistake from this afternoon. So let me just make these first, and then I'm going to show you how to correct a mistake. So for these flowers, I want to make them white, and that's just a light blue. So I'm going to take pure white, and like I said, you could have used masking fluid. Use masking fluid, and it'd be a lot easier. Oh yeah, the hotter it gets, the better beer tastes. Yes, it does. It actually tastes really, really good. When I start liking bitter beers, I know it's getting to be hot on here. A little shadow on there. I'm gonna rub out a little bit right here. I'm just gonna rub out. One thing nice about this paper of not arches, but the Stonehenge, you can rub out very easily. See how easy I rub that out? And just take a little bit of water, it rubs it right out. But that's also the reason why you can't use masking fluid. So it's one or the other. I'd rather rub out too, because you get a soft edge instead anyways. So over here too, I'm going to rub out a little bit. I'm going to rub a couple of these branches out here. I'm going to spatter a little bit. Get a little bit more rust in this thing. Now the white paint, the white flowers. And this you can also, I can use like my gouache, because it's better to use gouache than it is watercolor because it's more opaque. I mean, that's the reason it's called opaque watercolor, gouache. So I'm taking it really thick, putting little flowers in here, and just paint them in opaque. They are opaque, and yes, I know some of you are cringing right now because that's not what you do as a traditional watercolorist, but I actually enjoy and love doing this. I actually almost like it better than using the masking fluid, because the masking fluid tends to get way too hard to edge. And so I'm just going to put little flowers of white in there. And nobody's going to say anything. They're just going to look at the painting. They're not going to say, oh, you know, that's not traditional. You put white in there. Let's put a couple over here too. What the heck? In the shadow here. I'm just going to blur them in there a little bit. This side is not supposed to be too and then I can go back in with my darks really quickly. Go with some darks underneath there to kind of shade them around them. And they can even throw shadows on top of these leaves too, because the little flowers would throw shadows onto what's underneath them. All right. So I think that's pretty close, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on my old Earth version what to do when you make a mistake and it looks overworked. So really quickly, I'm going to take this painting that here, I said it was overworked, right? I went at least 3 times over this, and each time I got thicker and thicker, and then I rub out, I put it back in. Well, now we're going to take and totally eliminate that. And so what I do, and you know, you can correct mistakes in watercolor. It doesn't mean that, you know, a lot of people say that you can't. No, it's like, and I can even put other stuff in there too. So what I do is I just wet the area, and especially, it's a little bit harder on arches because arches sucks in, but this paper rubs out really easily. Now you don't want to scrub, you just want to lightly, gently put water on and then agitate. Not scrub, just agitate the painting a little bit, so that you're eliminating the pigment. You're bringing back up the pigment. It's sucking back my brush. I put it on my towel, and I'm just kind of taking it, re-wetting it, getting rid of the mane. I'm not going to get rid of everything. You just can't, because I did like 5 washes actually. I kept on going over and over and over, and I just thought I could do it, but you can't. You can't get the freshness unless you're doing what I'm doing right now. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back over everything with a wet wash and then apply my pigment thick and let it float, because it has to float. And that's the one thing, you have to let it float. And so I'm going to take like an orange, throw the orange in there. And it's probably even good to use opaque colors that they cover things up. Like if I take a little bit of white and yellow, that would maybe be a good thing, because then it'll cover up, you know, some things that are dark that I don't want to be dark. And as long as it's floating, it's gonna look transparent. I can even spatter still. And so I'm getting my freshness back. I'm getting the freshness of the painting back. Even though I'm using opaque colors, because it's floating, it looks like I meant to do it. Because sometimes I paint like that. I use white and I make it look like that in the beginning. So it's not like it's wrong. It's just like I have to use pigment to cover up the area that I didn't do right the first time. And so see, I was just floating. Now it's going to stay really wet because I'm floating a big amount of pigment on top of that. And then I can either wait till it dries, but we don't have that kind of time. So I'm just going to go in here and fix this part over here. Why is the right side of the can so light? Reflection? Yeah, it's I made it like a what do you call that? Reflective light. It's reflective light from somewhere else. It could be like something really blue is over here and it's getting back into the can. And so it's reflected light. You don't need that if you don't want it. I kind of like that look where you're using reflected light from something else. It kind of bounces back in. It just gives it another kind of light look. Here I'm going to do this really quickly over here. Make this a little bit tighter, a little bit darker, harder edged. But then at the same time, I want to put a little bit of this in there. So I'm also going to rub out. So I'm going to rub out a couple of these little things. See, I'm rubbing out. Just going to rub out a little bit and then put some of that color, which is like a little bit of orange. Throw that a little bit on top of the water again. It's got to float. Now see how this looks really fresh. Now I don't have the shadowing in yet, but I got to wait a little bit because I'll put it in with a soft edge and make it kind of hard. Or you can just wait till it dries. Use this kind of color. And actually I can make this a little bit darker right here to make it a little bit harder edged shadow. See, it's all wet in the wet, so it's softening itself. I don't have to soften hardly anything. I can put this up here too. Now this is going to be hard if I didn't wet it up there. But I feel like since this is, we'll make it a little bit dark right here. So I'll start out dark, hard edged, and what I'll do is I'll add water to that and soften it as I go along. And it can be in a hard edge too. I don't have to have everything soft edged. Let's see, then I'm just going to put that in there. And maybe this is too blue here on this side, so I'll just add that like that. Put your initials in the can. Yeah, I could do that. I wrote them in there, but now they're covered. Actually, in this one, I did put my initials in there. But how much more time do we have? We only have 5 minutes, so let me get these. Let me get this one to show you again how I would then put the shadowing in there. And again, I can use a lot of pigment, use the color that's already there, make it darker, which is an orangey red, maybe kind of a little brownish. And so I'm going here and then just do the shadow again. And this time it's going to be a little bit cleaner. There's one wash type of thing. I just went in there. After it's, I know it's kind of thick, but it's still floating, and so that's a good thing. This is reflected light. That blue is a reflected light. You know, it may not, I probably should have that somewhere else, that kind of blue. A little bit more of that. So maybe I'll put a little bit of that into the shadow. Right in that, when it starts the shadow. Go down. You can go down. I don't see how I don't have the shadows going across this way either. So let me put a little bit of that in there. I would rather do it right the first time than doing what I'm doing right now, but it can be done. So just don't think that it's always, you ruined it and you can't do anything to it. You can always do something to it. You can rub out the whole painting if you want and start it again. that is up to you. I don't like to do that, but there's times when if we wiped out the whole painting and started again. And if you got good paper, it's possible too, because you're not scrubbing, you're not rubbing, you're just agitating it a little bit. Here, make this a little bit darker, this shadow. And then I'm going to get on the thing here, I'm going to get some of those shadows going across, remember? Let's get a few of those. That goes into the can. And then I can put a little bit of, and then last but not least, that's about all the time I have for, will be to give it a little spatter. Spatter makes everything look textury, right? I mean, again, you can use salt, you can use all different kinds of things to get texture in there. I like to use my finger and tap down. It looks more, you know, looks a little bit more rusty that way. A real hard edge here. I am sweating up a storm here, guys. And it's not because I'm nervous. It's just hot in here. Whew. All right, let me take the tape off of this one and show you the difference. That line could be a little bit more line right here, a little more shadow. There we go. There's a beautiful shadow. And see how I put the lights again with white paint for the little flowers. And this is my masking fluid. Take the tape off real quick. And so please, again, just a reminder, if you want to send me a photo of yours, we're not going to paint them. You know, it's up to you if you want to paint it afterwards. But I just want to show you how you would take it, make it black and white, and talk about it a little bit to see if it's a good composition or not. Because I know it's hard to understand, but mostly it's about, does it look good? Does it have a good balance between the lights and darks? And that's usually all you need to have, a good balance between the lights and darks. So number one, this afternoon, I just showed you how to, you know, when you make a mistake on something and now it doesn't look overworked, because I didn't overwork it the second time, what I do is I wipe it and I just layer it with water. This one was done the first time, a little bit more clean, a little bit more rustic looking, a little bit more finished, because it is done on the first wash. And I also like the background here, kind of gives it a little bit more of that layer where this is the same as that. So a little bit better, but that always happens when you're doing a second painting. And so if you find yourself doing a painting once and you didn't kind of like it, try it a second time. You know, it's not a bad way of doing and learning. All right. So until next Tuesday, when we're gonna be talking a little bit more about design, and then we'll see you next Thursday, and I'm not sure what we're painting then. All right. Any other questions? Let me see. I love the color combinations. Thanks. Thank you, Barbie, Tina. Thanks for the initials. All right.